Hello and welcome to the Redefining High Performance podcast. My name is Ty Bennett. I am your host today, and today's episode, we are going to talk about the number one barrier to high performance. Today's episode is going to be fast. It's going to be quick. We're going to dive in and talk about something that is holding all of us back. Personally, professionally, it is keeping us from achieving our full potential. And to introduce that to you, I want to tell you a story. There is an incredible entrepreneur that I look up to a ton. Her name is Sara Blakely. Sara Blakely is the founder of Spanx. You might know that name. You might recognize the company. But go back with me to her beginnings. As a young 20-something, Sara Blakely was selling fax machines door to door in Atlanta, Georgia. As part of her wardrobe every day, she was supposed to wear pantyhose. And I don't know if you've ever been in Atlanta, Georgia when it's hot and muggy, but that sounds miserable. I haven't had that experience. But one day she decided to cut the feet off her pantyhose because she just couldn't deal with it anymore. And she realized she liked it. She was onto something because it got rid of that line at the end of the seam at the end of the pantyhose so she could wear open-toed shoes. It allowed for a little bit more breathability, but it still contoured her body. That was the original thought process that eventually developed into the product that we know as Spanx. Well, Sara Blakely took $5,000 that she had saved to go to grad school. She developed this product, and then she started to hustle. She got it into retail stores, to Neiman Marcus and Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom and all these high-end retailers. And eventually, Oprah named Spanx as one of her favorite things, and it kind of blew up from there. Fast forward a couple of years, and Sara Blakely finds herself on the cover of Forbes magazine as the youngest self-made female billionaire entrepreneur in the world. Unbelievable, right? My favorite part of her story actually came after that. Well, it technically came before. Just follow me. I have listened to her be interviewed by several people, and she's told this story before. She's talked about her growing up, and she grew up in a normal family, father, mother, a couple of kids, and they would try and have family dinner on a regular basis. And when they'd have family dinner, when they would sit down at the dinner table, Sara Blakely's father would ask a question, the same question every single time they'd have dinner, but it wasn't the question that most fathers ask. It wasn't, how was your day at school? It wasn't, what did you learn today? Sara Blakely's father would ask, how did you fail today? It's a fascinating question, isn't it? How did you fail today? And as a family, they would share. They would share their failures. They would talk about them openly. They would probably cry sometimes. They would laugh sometimes. And they learned together that failure was okay, that failure was even celebrated, that failure created learning opportunities, that failure moved them forward, and that failure was part of the process. That question, I think, is so poignant. And I think that there's no coincidence that the youngest self-made female billionaire entrepreneur in the world learned at a young age to embrace failure. Now let's circle back to the research, because our research showed that the number one barrier to high performance, what actually stops us, what keeps us from achieving what we're truly trying to achieve, the number one barrier to high performance, according to the research, is the fear of failure. None of us want to fail. None of us want to feel that discomfort. None of us want to look stupid in front of our friends. None of us want to go through the process of pain, of picking ourselves back up, of starting at square zero, of feeling like we can't get anything accomplished. That failure hurts. And yet, somebody like Sara Blakely has learned to embrace it, adopt it, and understand that it's part of the process. And because of that, is succeeding at a level that most people never will. Let's talk about it for a minute, because the reality is this. I believe that if we were to kind of illustrate this, if I were to give you, think about success and think about failure, I think most of us visually would put those in two different directions, right? Success is one direction, failure is another. And the reality is that they're the exact same direction. They're the same path. You have to go through failure to get to success. That is actually how high performance, success, achievement, It's how it works. There's nobody who just lands on home plate. They have to go through the process. They have to swing the bat. They have to strike out. They have to get on first. They have to learn through that process. Here was an interesting part of the research. In our research, we asked how many Americans, right? We asked working America, how important is it to embrace failure? Or do you believe that it is important to embrace failure? And 75% of Americans said yes, they agree it is important to embrace failure. But then we asked those same people, how many of you actually do embrace failure? And that 75% dropped to 40%. In research, we call that a performance gap, the difference between what you know you should do and what you actually do. And the fastest way to improve your performance is to close that gap. It's to actually learn to embrace failure. It's to be okay with it. It's to fully embrace it and know that it's important. That's hard. It's hard for a variety of reasons. It's hard because of all the things we talked about before. It doesn't feel good. But that's the way we learn. That's the way we grow. There was some research done by an economist named David Galenson, and he found that when you look at innovation, when you look at creativity, there's really two types of innovators. There are what he calls conceptual innovators. These are rare. These are the people who come on the scene and they just explode onto the scene. They have success very early, very quickly. We would call these people geniuses. They're rare because there's very few of them that just show up and have that kind of success, have this insane intellect or insane talent, but they exist. But for the majority of people, Galenson describes them as what he calls experimental innovators. Experimental innovators, they don't necessarily start with a clear plan. They tinker, they test, they adjust, and they refine over time. Most people are experimental innovators. They don't find greatness in a flash. They find it in the process, in the iteration. In fact, they find it in the failure. That's what makes Galeson's research so powerful when we talk about high performance, especially in light of our own research, which shows that the number one barrier to high performance is the fear of failure. Because here's the twist: experimental innovators succeed because they fail. They don't fear it, they expect it, they use it. Failure is not a verdict, it's feedback. It's not the end, it's information. And so for each of us, learning how to lean in, how to not try and just look perfect and avoid any uncomfortable situation, but expand our comfort zone, that becomes extremely important. Failure is a high performance catalyst. I want you to think back on your life for a minute and think about the times that you've grown or where you've achieved, and go back. I promise you it wasn't the first try. I promise you didn't just okay, let's say you've learned how to play an instrument, for example. When you sat down at a piano for the first time, were you playing Mozart? No. Were you playing your favorite song with both hands and playing the notes fluidly and blending them together? No. Did you even know what chords were? No. Right? It's the process of playing with it, failing through it. For us to create our greatest work, for us to perform at the highest level, we are experimental innovators. We fail through the process, and because of failure, we become great. It's not to spite it. So here's my challenge for you for this week is I want you every night to ask yourself this question and to write down the answer. How did I fail today? I want to reprogram your mind so that you can start to embrace failure, and because of that, learn, grow, and expand at different levels and perform at different levels than you ever have, because failure is a high performance catalyst. Thank you for listening to this episode. Again, every week, I just bring you one piece of the research, just these short nuggets, and we talk about it and hopefully give you some practical ideas. If you've enjoyed this, share it with somebody. Give us a rating, a review, give us 5 stars. Help us to share this with more people, because I truly believe this research is going to open up new ideas new doors, new possibilities, new insights for each of us to raise our level of performance, to redefine what high performance looks like. I love having this journey together. Thank you so much for listening. This is Ty Bennett. I will talk to you soon.